Boulevard's back, baby, and in a big way here to bring you all of your tournament tier list needs as we head into the patch that we'll be playing the World Walker Seasonal Tournament on in just 2 short weeks. That's right, the 16th and 17th. We have condensed seasonals down into one weekend, just in case you hadn't heard. So Swiss will be on Saturday, Top Cut will be on Sunday, or Monday morning for those of you in Oceania. Sorry, you have been abandoned. Now, as for the tier list itself, I don't think you're going to find too many hot takes here. Really, I think a lot of people are in agreement on what the opening weekend of tournaments is going to look like, what the opening meta sort of looks like, and what's really going to be interesting is just tracking the adaptations that come out of that and how quickly they happen. So you're not going to find any like hot takes or, oh, this is what I think is going to pop up here on the opening weekend. That'll be for after the OLS and the Mastering Runeterra event happens. But for now, I just want to give you an idea of what you're walking into baseline. One thing I want to mention here real quick, the archetype tab. I've gotten some questions from people about like, oh, I think this deck is this archetype. The purpose of this column is that if you are this kind of player, you will probably like this deck. So whether or not Azir Aurelia is an aggro deck or a combo deck or a tempo deck is pretty irrelevant. It's more so like if you want to say that Azir Aurelia is a combo deck, and then I'm used to decks like TF Nami, and I'm like, I'm a combo player. I play Storm and Magic the Gathering. And you hand me Azir Aurelia, I'm going to be pretty fucking disappointed. But if I'm an aggro player and you hand me Azir Aurelia, I'm probably going to be a lot less disappointed. So that's kind of what this is for. It's more for people that don't really know what this deck is. If they're just coming to the tier list and looking for like, hey, I just want decks to play, this is probably what you're looking for. This is probably what's going to jive with you. Just wanted to throw that out there. So up here at the top of the meta, we have Winding Light, Piltover, and Zon, Ahri Bard, and Twisted Fate Nami. The other day, I could have sworn I had 5 decks that I wanted to put in Tier 1, but when it came down to it, I couldn't remember 2 of them, so we only get 3. And these decks play very differently. I don't think you're going to find a cohesive lineup that's, like, beating all 3 of these decks. Maybe you can beat 2 of them on, like, a 50-50 margin, and then you span the third one and kind of go from there. But you're not going to find something that's stomping all 3 of these because the playstyle within them is so different. Like, Winding Light PNZ wants to go really wide. It's a little bit susceptible to sweepers, but a lot of the units are self-replacing and value-oriented, and then Winding Light comes down, turns all these little gummy guys into big units. It's almost like Yordles and Arms, where you're just playing a lot of like value units, and then, okay, yeah, here's the Yordles and Arms, this case Winding Light, and the Overwhelm is going to make it a little bit easier for you to finish off games. And you don't need the Winding Light, right? Like, you still have the Aphelios that can take over the game, Zoe could level up, you've got a lot of different avenues to victory. It's a very toolboxy deck. It's very fun to play. I think this is going to be a really big contender going into the seasonal, but I don't know if it's going to be the best deck of the format. I think it's going to stay top 3, though. Ahri Bard plays like elusive aggro in a lot of its games, and then Homecoming gets to spike a lot of matchups. And then TF Nami, you know at this point if you like Nami decks or you don't. There have been enough of them that you should have given them a shot by now. And I do want to shout out Annie Twisted Fate, which a lot of players are really big on right now. This is the Conservatory deck. I prefer TF Nami in a tournament lineup. I think that if you are a good player, TF Nami will probably serve you better over a longer period of time. And I think that Annie Twisted Fate has more shared weaknesses with like Winding Light PNZ than TF Nami does. I pulled that out of my ass, but that's kind of how I feel. In the susceptibility to sweepers and just kind of getting smorked down. But I don't think we are at the level where you should be trying to jam both of these decks into the same lineup. We had this a couple seasonals ago where Zoe Nami and Zoe Lee Sin were both very good decks, and if you could fit both of them in the same lineup, that was really cool. A lot of people went like Fizz in the Nami, or I think like even Tom Kench in the Nami was a consideration, or like they went Zed in the Lee Sin. I don't think that TF Nami and Annie Twisted Fate are at the power level where you really want to jam both of them into the lineup. But if you did, it would probably be Fizz in the Nami. To replace the Twisted Fate, but that's just, we'll see how that comes closer to the seasonal. I don't think that's really something you need to worry about week 1. Starting things off in Tier 2, we have sort of the go-to control deck for most players right now, which is Jace Heimerdinger. Jace was recently changed so that duplicated spells now count as being played for the purposes of things like Heimerdinger. So if you have a level 2 Jace in play, you have a Heimerdinger in play, you cast Shock Blast, you're getting 2 MK6 turrets. We might see a resurgence of Jace Lux as well. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I don't think this rule change really brings decks that weren't viable into viability like Karma Ezreal, especially as like Ezreal just got nerfed. But I did want to shout out that Jace Heimer is still in a very solid position. Don't think it's quite Tier 1, but it's definitely something that you're going to be seeing a lot of. Riven Fizz, I think, is still not slept on per se. People know about it. They're just not bringing it in the presence that I feel like they should. Sort of like Thrall's last patch, where the deck was obviously good and people just weren't bringing it. So curious to see how this plays out, but I think this might be something that we pay more attention to as the seasonal comes. Maybe even as like we just get into seasonal Top Cut is when Riven Fizz will start to shine, but I definitely think that this one is going to come up in a big way at some point in this meta. It might even just be like a week from now and then it falls off again, but this will have its day in the sun on patch 310. Viego obviously took some hits. I don't think the Viego Katarina version is dead by any stretch of the imagination. Legion Deserter still gets very big. A lot of the decks don't handle Fearsome super well, and there's a lot of Fearsome in the deck between Viego and Invasive Hydrovine and now Legion Deserter that, like, one of those is probably slipping through the cracks. But at the end of the day, you still have the Atrocity to go off of. You didn't necessarily need the Overwhelm damage. Yes, it was very good. It was very broken when you had the Overwhelm damage, but I don't think it kills the deck by any stretch of the imagination. Viego Shurima might gain some percentage points and some popularity back as a result of this because it doesn't play the Legion Deserter. And Viego Shurima really didn't take any hits from any of the patches, so should still be in a fine position as it was during the Curious Journey seasonal, and that might just start to come up to sort of contest the Noxus version of Viego. Thrall's going to lose some percentage points, obviously. Took some big nerfs. Promising Future getting nerfed by 2 mana is a lot. So we'll see how that turns out, but Thrall's wasn't really getting the play rate that I felt like it deserved on the previous patch, so I'd be surprised if its play rate went up. I don't think it's actually going to go down as much as you would expect, because I think there are a lot of people that are trying to prove that Thrall's is not a dead deck. So at least on the opening weekend, the spite from the player base will keep the play rate of Thralls in a pretty healthy position comparative to where it was last patch. Sundisk, as you can see here, like, just a lot of control and combo decks, so like Sundisk doing pretty well. And something that I saw someone else doing was they were actually running the Thralls spell in Sundisk, Sands of Time, in Sundisk as sort of the supplement to something like the Clockling that a lot of players were doing to try and re-accelerate the Sundisk back to an earlier turn. And I thought that was pretty nice, actually. You know, not just as a countdown spell, but as a nice defensive tool, because sometimes your board gets all these landmarks on it, and you want them to die so that Xerath can level, but you don't want to override them with units, and your opponent's going wide. So that was a cool little tech that I saw that I just wanted to shout out. And then Bandle Conservatory, I kind of already said my piece on, not Bandle Conservatory, sorry, but Conservatory in general. And then tier 3, just kind of the dredges, things that we expect to round out lineups. You know, Zero Aurelia is coming back a little bit. Aurelia just got Attune again. This is where the aggro decks are. Draven Scion, kind of a cool deck, but not sure how viable it is right now, as you're kind of doing the same thing Winding Light PNZ is doing, except your units aren't self-replacing. Yeah, you're a little bit more aggressive with the units that you do put down, but if something like Winding Light PNZ is just matching you on board card for card every time, I don't think you're really pushing through that much damage. And then Scion's not doing a great job of just ending the game on his own, on top of the fact that this deck plays like Hush, things like that. So yeah, not super in love with any of the tier 3 decks, but they are absolutely options. But again, this is sort of what the meta looks like as a whole. Not any super hot takes here. What we're going to be checking for is shared weaknesses, what decks are coming out of the woodwork to come up and sort of dominate this new meta, because we're in a very fresh environment. I've already started to notice some things myself. For example, I've been playing Fearsome on ladder, like straight up missed rates with Callista, because I was playing against a lot of Conservatory, and I noticed that, you know, they're not very great against Fearsome, and there's a lot of -1 attack effects in the game now, so even if they are just on the cusp, then you can still take them off the board. I don't know how good that deck actually is. I'm 6-0 with it on ladder, but that doesn't really mean much, so I'm just kind of pointing out that, like, I am not a deck builder, and I am finding things, like chinks in the armor of the meta, that I think I can exploit. So the brighter minds than I in terms of deck building will certainly find something. This is not by any stretch of the imagination what the World Walker seasonal meta is going to look like, but it is very much what the opening weekend is going to look like, and that is what I'm trying to prepare you for, because we have 2 tournaments coming up this weekend. We have the Online League Series, we have Mastering Runeterra X GGToor, and I don't think there's any tournaments next weekend, the weekend before the seasonal, but it's the weekend before the seasonal, so I'm sure somebody will do something. I don't know who, but somebody should. Maybe I'll do something. I don't know, man. But that is going to do it for me here, as your sort of introduction back into the meta, the return of Tournament Tactician. And also I have a new YouTube series that I'm doing where I take previous seasonal champions lineups and run them through the gauntlet to see if I can still pick up a Prime Glory with them. So that's cool. That comes out weekly now. I'm trying to ramp up my YouTube because obviously I got dropped by Giant Slayer for the video and the article content as they put pause on everything. So I'm trying to find a way to do content in the meantime, and my own channel seems like a pretty good place for it. I don't know how much it's going to ramp up. I don't have a consistent schedule. I'm just kind of doing this for fun. So yeah, just wanted to shout that out. Now, if I were playing this weekend, I would definitely be playing Winding Light PNZ. I would definitely be playing TF Nami. I didn't really like Ari Bard. Like, I've been trying all these decks. Ari Bard hasn't really been jiving with me. I don't have anything super in mind as, like, my last pick. I really like playing Sundisk, so maybe it would be Sundisk. It's not a very cohesive lineup, but, you know, that's what I would probably play because, again, playing for fun, trying to figure out how these decks fit into the meta. Anyway, that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, good luck in your tournaments. And signups for both those tournaments in the description below.